So we studied up to chapter 4 so far. So if you look at the trajectory of lessons we learned, so the first chapter was about decision making. When we come with plans, sometimes the situations will be so different. You might need to rethink what we should do. So come with a plan, but be flexible to make the right things based on the situation, right? So that was the lesson. And when you want to work or do something, like for Arjuna it is fight, the first thing we should know is who we are. So this is chapter 1. Chapter 2 focused on 2.1, I'd say, is identity. So Krishna talked about the identity that Arjuna, we're all Atma. We're not physical bodies only, right? So the identity is important. So that helps us, navigate the life better, right? So we are not just this temporary entity here in this world. We are an eternal being. So we discussed about the concept of identity. And then how do you work? When you understand you are an eternal living entity, how do you work? So the second, Karmanyavadhikarasya Mafalesh Kadachana, we discussed that topic. That was 2.2. So you have to work detached but committed. You should have, just because you are soul, doesn't mean that you feel detached from your work. You should also be responsible and committed. You are not entitled to the fruits, doesn't mean you don't commit yourself to your work, right? You work, you don't know what results you get. You may get positive, sometimes negative, sometimes neutral. It all depends on your karma. The karma in your life and in the past life. So it doesn't mean, you become detached, not detached, like irresponsible. You still stay responsible. So we learned those lessons. Then we learned about when you start working, there are a few things in your, in ourself, things that are going to sabotage our life, the things like anger, envy, jealous. So how do you handle them, right? Self-sabotage. We all are interested in working, but sometimes we go through the motions of anger, envy, false prestige. So we learned that we have to handle them carefully, right? These are all detrimental. These are all coming from our vasanas of previous lives, right? So self-sabotage and how to handle that, primarily through spiritual practices can we get out of this self-sabotage. And then we learned about self-actualization. Understand that we're all given gifts in life. Whatever abilities we have are God-given. Use those gifts for the service of the world, or for the service of God. That is the best way we can act in this world. That is the best way we can engage ourselves. That is going to give meaning and purpose to our life. So self-actualization is basically, we also discussed about when you decide what to do. There are two factors. One is internal, the other is external. Internally, you should be comfortable, meaning your interest is very much aligned to what you do. Externally, your interest doesn't mean I like art, doesn't mean that I can be a good artist, right? Externally, you need to develop your skill, right? Both competency and inner comfort, both are important when deciding what to do in your life, right? So both should be developed. So that we discussed. If you want, and whatever God has given, we use them as gifts in our life. Understand what I'm comfortable to do and develop my external abilities to do that. Then I can be, I can deliver. Even through challenges, I can survive. When challenges come, if you don't like a thing, then it's very difficult to, hold through and continue working on that area. So that is what we discussed. Now today we discussed what are the principles of happiness at work. How we can be happy in what we do. What is real happiness? That we will discuss. So we all are here to be happy. Anything we do is so that we can be happy. We study or we get married or we do a job. Ultimately, pleasure is the driving force. But pleasure in itself is not sufficient for us. There should be some meaning to what we do, right? Meaning. So how does meaning come? Sometimes we exert a lot of, extra work. Externally, it may not be, it may not be like giving you some money or things that are measurable, but still you feel happy to do that. Have you had any experiences like that? Like, I do it anyway because I like to do it. Walk in the nature, yeah. Sometimes even like, for example, raising children, it's not easy. Mothers can tell who had, gone through raising children. They know it's not easy, but still there is a sense of, um, fulfillment in going beyond ourselves. Taking care of ourselves is one thing. Taking care of others gives a sense of fulfillment. Gives a sense of meaning to our life. So generally, meaning comes in our life when we go beyond ourselves. When we just take care of our health, our basic needs, our bodily needs, that doesn't give a lot of meaning to our life. I mean, it is going to give you some pleasure, but that's not where, human can survive happily. As spiritually we evolve, it's about how we go beyond our own, happiness. That gives the meaning to our life, right? So, for example, um, meaning can be, even like um, making money is also a level of meaning. It doesn't mean that, that is not meaningful, because you can use that for right purposes. So, um, for example, uh, so this is the chart, right? So we can say, if you are doing a compatible job means you're very comfortable within to do, like, if you are good at math and being a math professor, right? And you are you are contributing to the society, right? So you're compatible, and also it's high paying, for example, right? So you found meaning as well as pleasure in that. People, you can say, it's a quite good situation, right? On the worst case, for example, you are in an incompatible job. Your skill is somewhere. You're not an engineer, but you are more like an artistic, creative person. But you are given a job of engineering, right? You are a software engineer, because in India, for example, everybody is an engineer. They don't know what their interests are, but go by society, and they end up being an engineer. It's an incompatible because they're not very skilled. They may also get a low-paying job, you know. Uh, Incompatible and low paying, for example, right? So there is no pleasure, there is no meaning for them, because they don't really contribute well beyond themselves. They struggle to do what they're given, right? They're trying to just meet the expectations or go below the bar. And naturally, for example, if it is a low paying job, then both ways it's not very meaningful for them, neither, derive pleasure. So this is the lowest, match. It doesn't lead to any happiness. We're talking about happiness here, how we can derive happiness through work. So that is the, topic here. And here, what is here? You have meaning. So you get some money. you're not really a software engineer by heart, but you somehow, you have enough good paying job. You don't really love your job, incompatible good paying. That's one level. You can survive, but you're not very happy. Now you have to deal with that for 30 years. That's not a good situation to be in. Yeah, it's not very meaningful. On the other hand, you don't need to work because your father already gave you, your father is Anil Ambani, for example, right? Okay, you're very happy. All that you do is to, yeah, go to parties and be with the friends, right? So you have a lot of pleasure, but meaningless pleasure. You don't know why you're there. You just go around and enjoy your money, right? It's not very, you think they're happy because they don't have any problems, but really there is no satisfaction at the heart level. Unfortunately, these people, those who have a lot of money and they don't know what to do, we think they're happy, they can enjoy, they can drink, they can do whatever they like with their money, but heart is not there. Heart is not feeling the fulfillment. Unfortunately, this is not the best situation to be in, right? So incompatible, but good high pleasure, right? Situation. So this is how we, can understand how meaning evolves. Now we'll understand pleasure, how pleasure evolves, right? Or pleasure, or say ardha. Ardha means something meaningful, right? Ardha means something meaningful in life, right? All living beings, whether you are human or animal, we all at the beginning, at the survival layer, we all defend ourselves to survive, right? Most of the animals just stay at that, level. This is just like there is evolution. Evolution, in the the Darwin's evolution, right? The physical evolution. This is spiritual evolution. How we spiritually evolve. So we all, at the basic level, we all, there is survival of the fittest, so-called survival of the fittest. So that is the common to all animals. Including human beings. Then there is pleasure. Live, the meaning that we derive is pleasure, right? And pleasure can be, like whatever, maybe through sex or through, good eating, right? So we all look for this. And then comes the next level where human fits, meaning. How do we derive meaning in life, right? So sometimes we go beyond our call of duty. For example, um, uh, I remember like um, one of my old friend, he was, his father was a firefighter. He's a firefighter. And when this, the 2011, the Twin Towers incident happened, so his father, I mean, he's a firefighter, called by duty, and nobody need to stop him, but nobody need to really push for him. But he went, so many firefighters went in, to save the people inside the building, Twin Towers, when it was collapsing. And many firefighters did not come back because it was such a massive thing. And uh, and that same thing happened to my friend's father as well. Sometimes called by duty, we overcome our own survival and pleasure. These become not such a big deal for us. Called by duty sometimes, because that is meaningful to them. Hey, this is a situation I need to jump in to help. Sometimes people jump in water to save others, right? They even sacrifice their own life, right? So meaning is something that, if there is nothing meaningful to live, there is nothing, there is a saying like that. Um, I don't recollect. If there is nothing meaningful to live, there is nothing really to live for, right? If there is nothing meaningful to live in your life, there is nothing to live for. There is something that we all should develop. Hey, this is my contribution to this world, whether it is through teaching or serving, whatever it is. So that is the driving force for us, right? And you can find in your own ways, to serve Krishna, right? So, but something we need to find where, we can do our best. And that's what drives our, purpose and meaning in life, right? So this is the level when we can truly be happy from inside. There is satisfaction in life. You all understand where I'm trying to go. This is conceptual because this is very important. Once you understand where I should look for happiness. Because we, when we try to be happy in this world, it should be meaningful. That's when we can be truly satisfied. We'll go over other happinesses, how we can derive and how it is, it doesn't give true satisfaction. So I hope the concept is clear. Meaning is when, for example, to raise a child is not easy. They wake up like 5 times in the night. All the mothers know, right? But still they do it because that is meaningful to them. To extend, so generally this level of happiness comes when we go beyond ourselves. It's not within yourself. You treat yourself, your senses, you're not going to be, there is a limit to your happiness. You cannot go beyond. But when you go beyond your own comfort and happiness, that's when there is going to be some meaning to your life. And that's where true happiness comes. That is what, I'm trying to share here. Yeah. Yeah. So meaning in life comes through taking responsibility. You can note down here, right? Meaning is proportional to the responsibility we take. Period. So this is a direct correlation. Yeah. 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 So as we take more responsibility in life, and that responsibility should go beyond our life. That's when we truly derive meaning in life. Yeah. So let's go to the next calls. Yeah. Okay. Now is the main concept. Yeah. So now let's discuss why. Now Bhagavad Gita chapter 20, yeah, chapter 5:22. So let's read this sloka because we think happiness comes through enjoying in this world, gratifying our senses. So now let's understand why that doesn't really is not really meaningful, right? So this is a beautiful verse from Bhagavad Gita. So you can all read with me. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. Want to read? Right. Closer.
Intelligence person does not take part in the source of misery, which are due to which is the material sense portion of only such pleasure has a beginning and an end, and so wise man does not delight in them.
Yeah. So Krishna is talking about physical happiness in this world. Physical happiness, how do we derive physical happiness? Like, huh? by engaging our senses in the, by enjoying the objects of senses, right? So there are two things. There are senses, there are sense objects, and by engaging senses, we try to derive pleasure or happiness, so-called happiness. Now, what Krishna said is, this pleasure that you're trying to derive happiness through enjoying sense objects, is a womb of misery. When a woman gets pregnant, in the beginning, there is no, bump. It's just like normal. But she is pregnant with a baby, right? In the beginning, she is pregnant with a baby, but there is no, bulge or anything. It's not visible. Similarly, when we engage senses with the sense objects, there is a so-called pleasure, but it is a womb of misery. Means it is going to come, it is going to end in misery. And this misery, there is no abortion for it. It's one way. You have to get it. Now we'll understand how, right? For example, when you watch movies, right? We watch movies, and yeah. So when we watch movies, we see all these, people with so beautiful and very well dressed. These people are, doubly doctored. Doubly doctored means at one level they do a lot of makeup, right? Before going to the presentation, they do a lot of takes, and then uh, and there is physical doctoring, and then there is digital doctoring. They remove all the blemishes in the videos to make it really attractive. And now when we watch those movies and come outside to the world and try to expect the same thing with our people, regular people outside, generally we cannot get what we see out, in the movies. Always what we see in reality falls short of reality, what we see in movies. So we think we can be happy like that. We imagine by, sense object means it should be like that movie object. But in the real world, nothing really matches like that. Isn't it? Is that not our experience? So generally sense objects availability is low. The first problem with sense objects is sense objects. Problem one is availability. There are not enough, and even if they are there, some of them are there, it's not good enough, because we expect a level of quality also. It's like, we want a certain level of, quality in the objects. Any object you take, it's not just, opposite sex, it could be anything you take. For example, good food, right? You may go to a party, you will find only few things you really like. And it's not like unlimited things. There are limited number of things. You cannot just grab the whole thing. It's limited, right? So this is the problem with these sense objects. Sense objects have this problem of availability. There was, I remember, there was a T-shirt code during my college days. On the T-shirt, it is written, 90% of the women in the world are beautiful. Remaining 10% are in my college. The guy's expectation is like that. So it is generally, because the real world is never going to match what people expect. People expectations are very high. You see, a lot of people go shopping for marriage for so long. I have seen, some of my friends, they shop for like 5 years, 7 years, because their imaginations are not matching. Availability is problem, right? So they face a real availability problem. And then Senses, come to the senses. The senses have the senses like, our eyes, nose, they have a capacity problem. If I give you, 100 gulab jamuns, you like gulab jamuns, for example. If I give you 100 gulab, can you eat? No. That is a big problem, right? Because you really love, but you can't, there is a capacity. And you are limited by capacity always. Does it mean that you are satisfied? Tomorrow, if I give you, then you also you'll eat. It's not like, oh, I ate yesterday and I'm happy, I'm satisfied. No, that is a problem. And it's never going to be like, I'm done with this. Because that is the nature of sense pleasure. The more you indulge, the more craving increases. I want that. But the problem is the capacity is limited. As you age, the diminishing returns, the law of diminishing returns. The capacity to enjoy goes down, and the desire to enjoy, what happens to the desire? Increases. It's like you have fire. In the fire, you put ghee. What happens? In the beginning, it appears, oh, ghee actually subsided the fire, but actually the fire increases. And it's more and more fire. So similarly, the desire is never going to decrease. You think by indulging in sense gratification, the desire will go away? No, it's going to be limited. It's going to limit you. So even if you are billionaire, for example, somebody is like billionaire, you also can eat 4 chapatis only. So, what, there was some research done. Hey, I really want to enjoy these, but I'm not able to enjoy. Especially, in food industry, this research was done. So they made a tablet. If you eat the tablet, you would vomit whatever you ate without much pain. When you are empty, again you can eat. Right? So they try to extend your capacity like that. And then you know what happened? Many people who tried that, very few, years later they died, because it's not the natural mechanism for the body. There is the whole, system that, that aligns with your eating habits. So they couldn't survive. So if you try to artificially circumvent this limitation, any of these limitations are natural. If you try to circumvent, what happens? It's going to lead to unwanted, unexpected results. So it didn't work. So capacity is limited, and you, even if you earn billions of dollars, but yeah, but tomorrow you may, but after 10 days you were, but after 10 days you will feel that. Maybe, but with many things, the desire to enjoy won't go. Otherwise, a lot of people take cigarettes. Why it becomes an addictive thing, right? So at some point it becomes, it's like something, a compulsion. They don't really derive any desire or any pleasure. If they don't do it, they feel problem. If they don't puff the cigarette, they get shivers or things like that, unfortunately. So, and if they do, they're damned. And if they don't do, also they're damned. So many things are like that. I mean, that is a very extreme case. But the main point I'm trying to say is the capacity to enjoy is limited. And it's not that you're done with. Just by engaging senses in, in enjoying the sense objects, your your capacity reduces, but your desire doesn't. So um, this is called treachery of desire. Treachery means cheating, right? So desire is like a thing that cheats us. There is a lot of promise of pleasure in the beginning. Oh, I'll be so happy by doing this. We all think, right? Imagine like, oh, if I only do that, I'll be so happy. Most of them related to, senses, interacting with sense objects only. If I only get that, if I only get that job, I'll be happy. You enter the job, you're, struggling so hard. My God, why did I even choose this? Right? So many times life is like that. It's called treachery of desire. So there is a lot of, that is what Maya does. Maya means, you know, the false happiness in this world. You know, we think that by enjoying the sense objects, I can be so happy. But as you start engaging with it, more often than less, it is, especially if it is a incompatible thing to your core self, it's going to lead to misery, right? Yeah. Yeah, so this leads to torment. A lot of times we think we can be happy, but because of unfulfilled desire, the desire, as you as for example, you can this you can understand. As people get old, do you think their desire to eat sweets goes down? No, actually, we all have seen our grandfathers, they have this, liking to eat sweets. The desire keeps, you know, so if you have a health problem, you can't eat. But, there is, for example, you went to a marriage and your health situation is that you cannot eat sweets and there are ample number of sweets and you have such craving for sweets. What happens? Hmm? What is the feeling you get? Or maybe anything, take anything that you really love, but you can't enjoy because you don't have the capacity to do it. Huh? Unhappy? Any other correct? Huh? Frustration, yeah. You feel frustrated. So that's the situation that we all get into. So this is called superficiality of sense enjoyment. Superficiality means we think there is a lot of promise, but actually it doesn't give that inner satisfaction. Any interaction of senses with sense object has the same problem. Okay, so it doesn't mean that we don't eat. We eat, but we understand. We this is not the only place where I'm going to derive meaning and purpose and happiness, right? So we understand this, and we make sure we have control on our senses, right? So that's the whole practice of spirituality, so that you control your mind, so that you don't engage in sense gratification unscrupulously or relentlessly. Yeah. So overall, we discussed, there is this acronym I got. So this is the acronym for sense gratification. A for the first problem is we all have imaginations. There are not enough objects available. So availability problem. Availability of sense objects, right? Sense objects are not sufficiently available or they're not good enough for our satisfaction. Second problem is capacity. We cannot enjoy, we don't have, uh, unlimited capacity. We have limited capacity. This is for senses. Senses are limited capacity. And the third problem is treachery of desire. Treachery of desire means the desire keeps increasing when you engage in sense gratification, but it's not fulfilling. You feel unfulfilled because you have limited capacity and the objects that you're looking for are not sufficiently available. So that desire kind of illusions you, and the superficiality of happiness, of sense gratification. S is for superficiality of happiness. The happiness that you derive by engaging senses in sense gratification is superficial. Superficial means it doesn't really give a lot of meaning. For example, you are really bored and you decided, okay, let me watch some comedy. You start watching comedy. How long can you watch? Say you watched YouTube for 2 hours. Sometimes we lose track of things and then keep watching Facebook or YouTube. But what happens after after how many of you have done, like, say, by mistake, I just spent like 2 hours today on Facebook. I did that. We did, I mean, YouTube, or we just go around and without really clear thought, we just go surf around. And then what happens after 2 hours? You feel a lot of guilt, right? My God, what did I do? Right? Don't we? We all feel guilt because that's the happiness is actually superficial. For example, if you are very unhappy and you start watching comedy shows, but there is a limit, right? You cannot just keep watching comedy shows forever. If happiness is the such physical happiness is the only thing is really any meaningful, we can ask, or scientists could have spent a lot of time in building some titillating devices that can help superficially happy, but it doesn't really give meaning to our life. So these are the problems with sense gratification in general. It's all temporary, meaningless. It has availability, capacity, and treachery of desire. These problems. Any questions so far? Mhm.
Does it work the same, like it keeps increasing and it remains unfulfilled?
No. Krishna conscious enjoyment is it is related to heart, because spirituality is directly for soul. All these things we discussed is for the body or the senses. So these have these four problems. But when you engage in Krishna consciousness, there is a deep fulfillment from inside, which really satisfies the soul. It's not just the soul. So it doesn't, the more you do, the more fulfilling it is. So it has the exact opposite effect. Yeah. So yeah,
Like for that, state would be satisfied, right? How do we understand?
that's why it's called temporary. Krishna says temporarily you satisfied, but the desire to eat increases. Now you go to sleep and then you think about how I was eating gulab jamun so happily, that you are sowing the seed of desire, you know, and then you plan when will be the next time I'll be eating gulab jamuns, you know. So things like that, when you start engaging, you start thinking about how I can get this pleasure again, more and more, whatever it is. That's how people get addicted to things. They many times the first time they drink wine, it is a miserable feeling, little bit, they try, but they just for socialization they try to do it. They think that it's a it's normal, it's just, but they go in the night and think, oh, that was nice, it got a kick for me. And then they do the same thing, silently, without telling their wife, go and try something, and and they find some friends there who are also liking, oh, they say, ah, this is the best, go do it, you know. So association of, so here you have an association of devotees, they'll find association of drinkers, and they all try to do that, and then lives are spoiled once they become addicted. So it's like that. Mhm. Can you, I'm not able to hear. Maybe you should switch on. Oh, okay. Mhm. Exactly. That is why you're all here. Why is disconnect? Because people are ignorant. That's the true fact. Nobody is looking inside. You're all thinking there must be some higher pleasure. That is why you're all here. Otherwise, you would not be coming here, right? But not everybody is like that. Even most of our life, we are like that. It's not like we are, any better before, right? Now we had a chance. Now we are able to explore what is inside, right? But until now, so time comes to everyone. So hopefully one day they will realize. So Krishna says, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam siddhanam. So he says, out of thousands of men or women, one will inquire, who am I? Why am I here? Why am I suffering in this world? What is the real purpose? Right? Out of thousand, one will do that. So you can see, out of millions of people in Seattle, you're all the one who are doing this. And there are many more, but yeah. So very few actually understand the purpose of life. Yeah. So we should not be shaken by, oh, why the whole world is the other way. If they think, they all know, they all go through these commotions, it's not like we all have, whatever we're discussing, you can all relate to it, right? Yeah. But few people go deep and understand, and they'll go to the bottom of it. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, Shashwat, take the mic. Mhm. Mm.
Then we also discussed that that's because we are identifying ourselves only on the functional identity as a person, say, as a father, as an employee. And we also saw that there's a fundamental identity where we are split soul.
Mm.
But practically, we have to balance both identities.
Yes, we have to balance.
Things seems to strike here where all these perceptions through the senses, even though it's limiting, seems like it's linked with one of these identities, which inevitably gets into our day-to-day life.
Mhm.
How
Yeah.
is the correlation between
Our functional identity in this world, we have different roles to play, and we have to engage with the sense objects. It's not like we don't, but we understand that we understand we should keep limits to it. Like, we should understand that this is not the only place I'm going to derive happiness. And we avoid certain things, for example, like, four regulative principles we follow, right? They're also sense engagement, but they're like going to, they're going to drag you down completely. Like somebody drinks wine, their consciousness will be low. They're always in an illusory world, right? So you don't want to be engaged. So avoiding four regulative principles is the key. And when you do that and understand, even with sweets, if we try to limit ourselves, we are on track. And we understand the importance of, spiritual engagement, because that is what is going to really satisfy the heart, satisfy the soul, right? So now we look for that place to really get our true pleasure, right? Yes, when you have higher taste, naturally these lower tastes will go away from our life, right? Otherwise, why all of you would come for Mangalarti? If to wake up early in the morning Not everybody is willing. Huh? Yeah, because Rahul is doing that. Yeah. Some inspiration is there. That's good. Uh, it's not very pleasurable for the body, but the soul is jumping with joy in that singing for Lord, seeing the face of Lord, beautiful face of the Lord in the beginning of the day. So that, the soul is enjoying. Physically, you're not, physically, you might be tired. You might need to go back and sleep after the Mangalarti. But the soul is joyful. Yeah, in that. So you all, that is higher taste, right? So when you engage more and more like that, then slowly all these lower desires, the desire to engage in a lower ways will go away naturally because you have a higher taste. Mind is always after what gives me the most pleasure, and if you make your life such that you derive most pleasure in spiritual aspects of life, then naturally lower things will be driven away from your life. Yeah. So lot of this sense gratification, there is one more important concept to learn. They're like nectar in the beginning, right? Feels so pleasurable, but there is a long chain of misery. Misery is long there, nobody does. So that's how, all the advertisement industry works on the same principle. They'll show you, just buy this, you'll be so happy. There is nothing, you just buy this, you'll be very happy. And you feel that, oh, I'll be happy by this, and you buy it, you lose money, you really don't get that much pleasure. So many things are like that. So there is a lot of propaganda in this world, like, like you're saying, right? So the whole world is teaching you, eat this only and you'll be happy, enjoy like this. But a lot of things will lead to misery, for the long term, because the happiness you derive is only a limited thing, right? But on the other side, um, so this is with the, um, meaningless pleasures. Anything that gives meaningless pleasures means, um, like, partying or things like that. So there is some so-called titillating happiness in the beginning, right? But there is a, so I'll tell you this. I think this is an important concept. So in 1960s, there is a revolution in the Western world, in the US especially. That revolution is called free love. Have you heard this? Free love revolution. This is when the young generation, the parents have worked hard in World War, 1945s. Now they have raised these kids with, and America became quite rich at the time because they're selling all missiles, right, to all the countries for engaging in the wars. They made all the money, and everybody else fought and lost everything, right? So these parents have worked very hard, and they have a lot of money, and the children who were raised in those families, they had so much enjoyment. So by the time they became teens, they felt, what is the real happiness, So they thought, engaging in sex is the only way to be really happy. So they had these hippies that have been created all over America. In all, major cities, there were this hippie movement, it's called. You can look up online. And this is exactly what Srila Prabhupada addressed when he came in 1965. So this hippie movement was, so the idea is, okay, young people, they try to get high through drug addiction and sex. That is the whole concept of life for them. And there were a lot of, psychological, forget about morality and spirituality, psychological studies done on these people later on in their life. Most of these people who have spent their life between, their early 20s to, 30s, they all led a very miserable life all their life. Most of them were lonely because when they were engaging in this free love, there were, you know, everybody is expecting, some sense gratification there. They're all coming together only to I titillate your senses and you titillate my senses. They're physically coming together, but their hearts are not coming together. Their hearts are not coming together. They enjoy each other. They feel like, oh, I I was cheated, or I cheated her, or I cheated him. So things like that. So they all felt, and some of them became pregnant and they had to carry, and they lost meaning and purpose and direction after doing all this nonsense in their early life. So it appeared like nectar for them in the beginning, but their whole life was a misery. They were the most lonely people. So these psychological studies have proved that this revolution called free love has spoiled much of American youth in those 60s and 70s, right? Actually, this is a misconcept, because this is called an oxymoron. You know oxymorons? What is an oxymoron? Two opposite meanings, right? That's a brilliantly stupid answer, for example. I can say, not your answer, but I'm saying, if you say brilliantly stupid answer, you're saying it's a stupid answer, but it's a brilliant, right? So it's an opposite meaning. So sometimes, he's quite regularly irregular. He comes to our classes, but regularly irregular. What does it mean? He's irregular, right? Yeah, things like that. So this is a oxymoron. Why? Love means what? True love means sacrifice. You really want to sacrifice for the other person. Otherwise, there is no love. And you are like a bonded person to the other. Like, you want to do what they like. That's the meaning of love. But when you are engaging in free love, means you come together, so-called love. It's actually free lust. When you are engaging in these acts of sex, or drug enjoyment with the other people, there is no bonding, really. So it's kind of an oxymoron. Actually, it's not really meaningful. So why are we discussing? Yeah, so do you understand the concept of sense gratification? Krishna says all these sense gratificated things, they appear like nectar in the beginning, but they lead to a lot of misery all your rest of your life. Take any addiction or anything you have, so you can relate to your own life and identify things where you are addicted to certain things. That's the introspection we should all do and improve from there, right? But on the other hand, so these are also things in mode of ignorance and passion. The acts that we do in the mode of ignorance and passion, they appear like nectar in the beginning, but they are a misery for the rest of the period. On the other hand, there are other things, they especially in the things in the mode of goodness, like practice of spirituality, right? Mode of goodness. This is like passion, ignorance, goodness. Things in the mode of goodness. So they appear like poison in the beginning, but nectar for the rest of life, right? To rise early in the morning is not a easy thing in the beginning, but you work hard and make it a habit of your life. And in the morning, you start practicing spirituality, meditation. That gives you, lot of inner understanding, inner meaning. It adds a lot of inner meaning to your life. For a period of time, you become a lot more peaceful and happy in life, right? So it's nectar. So any discipline, for example, or any learning. For example, you take an example of, you are in a country where you don't know the language. You are in China, you don't know China language, right? In the beginning, it's difficult. and you decided, okay, I need to learn to be really able to relate to the people here. And you spend time and energy, you spend like a couple of months learning it. The journey is not easy. But once you learn something, then your life will be much more easy, right? So any discipline, whether or learning, or you say you started learning practice of yoga, right? Or yogasanas, for example. In the beginning, it's going to be a little tough because you have to flex your body and you have to give your time every day. But once you do that and you continue to do that forever in your life, what happens? You become more flexible, you become more healthy, and you don't get any diseases, you are more peaceful in life, right? So it gives you a lot of value in life. So that's how you derive meaning in life, right? So yeah. So this is one important concept I wanted to discuss. Yeah, so these are the various concepts of this chapter, right? So we'll read the verse again. You can understand. Yeah. ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगा दुःखयोनाय एव ते आद्यन्तवन्त कौन्तेय न तेषु रमते बुधा. An intelligent person doesn't take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. Intelligent person means one who has this understanding of interaction between senses and sense objects. Right? O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man or woman doesn't delight in them. Right? So that's the verse. So in this purport, Prabhupada explains about yogi's happiness. Ramante yogino anante satyanande chidatmani iti rama padanesau param brahma dhiyate. The mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasure from the absolute truth. And therefore, the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. Rama, the word literally means pleasure giving. In the beginning, we may not derive any happiness by looking at Lord Rama, but actually, that is the most pleasurable object. We don't realize, but as you practice, when you connect, develop relation with Rama, you derive pleasure. Or Krishna, for example. Krishna means, what is Krishna? All attractive. If I put a piece of gold, we all feel attracted to it, right? That is our current level of consciousness. But when you practice spiritual life, you understand Krishna is the most attractive object. And that is where your true pleasure is. Our Acharya Goswami say, when I chant the name of Krishna, Krishna, the two syllables, when I chant on my tongue, Krishna dances and my heart deeply sinks in happiness and my voice chokes. I can't speak the next word. I just said Krishna and my heart is in so much deep happiness, I can't utter the next word itself. So that is the depth of happiness that one gets when he engages in spiritual life. That is where we are all preparing ourselves to. Okay? So there is no comparison to that happiness to any of the happiness that we can derive from sense objects of this world. Right? Yeah. So main idea we discussed was the abbreviation acts to understand about the, right? Whenever you engage in, deriving pleasure from sense objects, remember these acts. They are not available or available or not good enough. It never meets our expectations. You think that you married a person who meets all your expectations. Okay, just wait some time, you will realize. Okay, you know, everybody, nobody can meet our expectations. Impossible. Yeah. So availability is limited. And then capacity. Capacity to enjoy is limited. You cannot just enjoy forever. You have a limited capacity, right? Even though, and by engaging in sense gratification, what happens? The desire only surges, increases. It never, oh, I'm done. I hate enough. I did this enough that I don't want to do anymore. No, it never like that. Just wait 1 week, you will feel the desire to enjoy again. So it's called treachery of desire. Our capacity keeps reducing, our desire keeps increasing, right? So we are left with unsatisfied, unfulfilled hurts. If we all think that, my happiness is going to be, in driving this car, it's going to be a miserable situation because the desires can never be fulfilled. And then superficiality of the happiness, right? The S part is the superficiality because it doesn't really satisfy the heart, right? It's not very meaningful, right? Any sense gratification, it only titillates our gross senses. It doesn't touch the heart. But for example, you do anything that is meaningful. Meaningful means you go beyond yourself. Suppose you engaged in the act of charity to help others, or you know swimming and you saw somebody drowning, you went beyond your own life and you saved him. Does that give you satisfaction? I ask you. It gives you satisfaction more than anything like. In fact, people are ready to give their life sometimes in saving others because that is very meaningful for them. Similarly, engaging in spirituality gives that inner satisfaction that doesn't come from anything else, like engaging in sense gratifications, right? So that's what we are after. And these happiness in the beginning may appear like poison, right? Because you may need to discipline your senses, right? If you want to wake up early in the morning and chant the holy names, you need certain level of discipline. And that requires some, it appears like poison in the beginning, but your entire life will be more meaningful, more purposeful, and more, satisfied. Yeah. We look at, and I don't want to say this, but we look at all these billionaires. If money gives all the meaning they are looking for, why would they engage in cheating their wives? We have seen all these big guys, I don't want to name them, they all ended up in divorce. Why? Because they eventually they had everything in life. Availability is not a problem for them. Availability is a problem for most of us, but availability is not a problem for them. Capacity, of course, is limited, but eventually doesn't satisfy the heart. People who build the largest companies, trillion-dollar companies, still left with empty hearts. And they're engaging in activities that are abominable. Look at their personal lives. They are most abominable. Because why? Even after having all of this, their hearts are not satisfied. People who are intelligent, just reading scriptures, just reading the life of Ravana and Hiranyakashipu, we understand this is what will happen. If I have too many material things, this is what is going to happen. We'll understand that. But those who don't have that knowledge, they think that achieving high in outside world is everything. And so they try it. But we have examples today. I heard that, in Medina, there was the most sprawling home in which Bill Gates lives all alone. Do you know that? Because his entire family left, and he's all alone. And he lives alone right now. But what happiness do you really derive? if nobody is there with you. You have everything, all the facilities. But where is the happiness? You see, we think that they're happy, but that's where they end up. So we should take spiritual life very seriously. That's where true happiness is. Okay, we'll end the session here. Mhm.
So I think gulab jamun for everybody is like this gulab jamun for everybody is pleasure. So I think everyone can improve by one comfort. So how do we relate to others like during sadhu sangha or I think my question is how do we differentiate between controlling our senses and suppressing our senses? Because if we suppress them and like, if we don't know how to control them,
Hmm.
we might be suppressing them.
Yeah, next chapter will deal with this topic. We are just preparing ourselves for the next chapter. Yeah, we should not suppress artificially, by the way. If our senses are pushing hard, you should do something to make sure it is, calm down, right? Engage in some activities, if not, that activity. But so that's why yogi means regulation. It's not like suppress. Suppress is not what yogi is supposed to do. It's not like I will stop eating all sweets.
Understanding will come with experience only. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So we
You have to pay the price. Yeah. Somewhere you will pay the price and you learn. Yeah. That's what happens to most of us. Yeah. Some people don't learn by it, even though they get slaps all the time. Even among devotees, some are so sticky, they can't just give up. And middle world keeps giving slaps again and again. Still they continue. But eventually Krishna will make sure they learn the lesson. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? So we'll chant one round.